So Hans Wormhat, in part three of this video, um, he goes into trying to just directly attack people who seek to learn about the truth. A form of hypocrisy so rank and destructive that it's as far as you can go. The devil is only effective when he can pass himself off as righteous. The devil, remember, the devil is known as the angel of light, and his most effective way to deceive is to trick you into thinking that he's good. Can you imagine the devil being effective by tricking you, by blatantly showing you how evil he is and how wrong he is? Of course not. The Bible says multiple times how the devil engages in an imitation of God's glory. And you're about to see the devil in action, because another name for the devil is the accuser. Besides the deceiver, the devil is known as the accuser, falsely accusing people in self-righteous arrogance. So please, Hans, let's hear what you have to say.
They're just lost. And most of the people who push scientism, they aren't even really into it. That's not their religion. They're just straight up Satanist. I didn't include images, but plenty.
There you go. There it is. I mean, based upon nothing, does this man falsely accuse people of being Satanists? Let's continue to listen to this devil worshiper, because my basis of calling him a devil worshiper is that he falsely accuses, and the devil is known as the accuser. It's actually a translation, at least a historical interpretation of Satan's name. So let's continue listening to this agent of Satan accuse people who seek the truth of being Satanists.
Plenty of people that come on my videos and try to bash me about science stuff. Oh, Hans, you're so dumb. You don't know any science. People, they're just Satanists. They have 666 usernames. They have Baphomet icons. They have. So my point here is.
Really? Maybe some of them do. But I think part of the problem is that you, like so many other charlatans, have misunderstood what Satan is. 666 is not even in the Bible. It was a mistranslation of 616 when it's attributed to Nero. And even if that were not the case, the point of Satan in the Bible is to deceive and accuse. You cannot deceive people who are not looking for an ulterior motive. Okay? The only people that you can deceive are people who seek an ulterior motive. Racists, hypocrites, and people of that nature will readily gobble up your lies, Hans. And the reason why racism is such a sore spot for me is because it is a form of self-righteous hypocrisy disguised as a form of goodness. Racist people are usually the type of people that think the way that you do. They jump to conclusions. They draw conclusions prematurely. They falsely accuse other people. They collectively accuse people based upon the crimes of a few. You just did that. But I'm not saying that you're racist. I am saying that your philosophy is attractive to racists. It's attractive to bigots, because what you are teaching is a form of bigotry. You are showing bigotry towards science-minded people. And it's baseless. It's baseless. People sometimes they gravitate towards these so-called satanic things, 666 and whatnot, because They're trying to show the world the absurdity of it all. Satan is not effective because of the number 666. Satan is effective by teaching people to hate each other, by teaching people to live in fear, by teaching people to have no compassion, by teaching people to live in greed and things like that, to teach people to not show love to one another. That is the goal. That is the pinnacle of satanic thought and satanic expression. So, scientists seek the truth, and scientists love their families, and they, by and large, my understanding, they have a value for elevating all of humanity. Now, there are some exceptions. I mean, the guy that discovered or helped to discover the DNA, the guy that made the bell curve, some of those scientists are like yourself, prejudiced, bigoted types of people. They're blind. They have blind spots. And so we're going to continue. I'm going to let you continue on, and we're going to find some of your blind spots or some of the blind spots that you're trying to take advantage of that some of your listeners may have.
There's people that believe in scientism, and usually those people are just lost. They believe what they're told. That's what I used to be. And then you have people that push scientism, always talking about planets, always talking about outer space and stuff. But what they are is they're lying Satanists, and they're just pushing this false paradigm. A huge thing that people bring up, NASA hasn't been around forever. What, so they were faking stuff before NASA? Yeah, people have been lying forever. People have always been lying. People have always been deceiving. Victorian era trick photography. Scientism. I think I like sciencism better, because it's not like they're worshiping just the scientists. They could come out with an article about AI robot stuff, and people, so it's not just about the scientists. How long ago was this when doctors were pushing SIGs? Higgs boson. It's just a bunch of BS CGI stuff. How do you know that CERN is...
Now you just did something. You told a lie. So the first part where doctors were pushing cigarettes, definitely that's a definite good point on your part. But remember what I said earlier about the blind spots and how you're hoping that your audience doesn't, see the blind spot. You then jump to showing images of space and calling it, fake. And the blind spot, therefore, is that you, even though you rightly show how ignorant it was for doctors to advertise using cigarettes as a therapeutic method, what you are failing to do is to identify that those doctors, just like a lot of doctors today that use inadequately tested pharmaceuticals, they get kickbacks. And that has nothing to do with you trying to show how images of space are doctored up. You're not looking at the evidence. It would be different if you had described how these doctors did not address the evidence. That would be like scientists showing pictures of outer space, but not showing any evidence to explain how they've come to those conclusions. The doctors did not show any evidence. In those days, just like with the racism, just like with what you're doing right now, they assumed before gathering enough information, and they pass those assumptions off as reliable facts. What you're doing is you are falsely accusing people today of making assumptions and passing them off, when in fact you are ignoring the evidence that has been presented. Therein is the blind spot. That's the trick that you're doing, and that's what I'm going to debunk next.
Anything other than Disneyland? How do you know that they actually do anything there? It's not science. It's not reproducible. Can other people go can real people not? it's all elitist. It's all appeal to authority. No, you'll never be able to go do that stuff.
Okay, now the blind spot here is you want people to assume that they cannot get themselves educated to learn to do these very things. And by the way, these tests can be done, and they are done in multiple locations throughout the world. It's not just in one spot. But you have a problem. And your problem is that when a person becomes educated to learn about the process of how, the rest of the public that has not yet been educated is no longer a part of that particular individual's paradigm. If I learn to drive a car safely, everyone before me who did not learn how to drive a car could, ignorantly say, hey, cars, they're not reliable. They're terrible, blah, blah, blah. Or the same thing with an airplane. If a person learns to fly an airplane, they could say, oh, airplanes are so dangerous. They're more dangerous than cars. They're more dangerous than this. They're more dangerous than that. A lot of assumptions can be made. And those assumptions you pass off with your voice and with your articulation as we've already settled the matter. But you haven't, Hans. And that's where you're lying to your audience. That's why I call you a Satan worshiper. That's what Satan did in the Bible. He would, he said, hey, surely you won't die if you eat the apple or the piece of fruit, rather. Surely you're not going to die. You can gain knowledge by doing this. And you're not trying to get people to eat the fruit, but you are trying to steer people away from learning in order to discern. You're trying to replace discernment with your assumptions. And I think that's where, you could call that just a long, endless series of blind spots. Let's continue. Go ahead.
Because you're too stupid. It's just what they'll tell you. But what they don't tell you is it's actually just Disneyland. And it doesn't actually do anything.
Yeah, you said that they would tell us that we're too stupid, but that's not what they tell us. What they tell us is you need to take the time and the patience to learn this, read, study, experiment, and build on that knowledge and continue. So you just told a lie. And it's funny because I haven't gone through your video and went back and ran through a script. I'm really able to follow your tactic, your rabbit hole of lies. And I can see how you are making your arguments in a way that fits a deception that you have already articulated. So I guess I get the deception already, and seeing you go through the process of trying to make it effective to your listeners, I can see it. I know the path that you're taking. So let's continue.
It's a Wizard of Oz. Here's just another big one. Did the U.S. Army distribute smallpox blankets to Indians? Turns out this person's a fraud. And this story gets perpetuated. And the only reason that people ever find out about it is probably because inconsistencies in the story. Because at the time that this was supposed to happen, their understanding of disease wasn't even the same. So they wouldn't have thought of biological warfare like this.
Yeah, see, I mentioned the racial aspect of this before, and here we are. This is one of the pillars of people like you, of your goal. Your goal is to make the white Western American blameless and innocent. Those soldiers, those generals, those politicians, they knew back then that those infected blankets could be spread to infect others. There was enough knowledge back then that they could spread a disease that way without really understanding how it works. See, we're back to how and why. Why does it work versus how it works? The why it works is, well, from their point of view, we don't know, it just does. How it works, maybe a few people had a rudimentarily understanding of saying, oh, something is being put into the blanket that we cannot see, and that gets spread. Okay. But they were aware. And I am surprised that I can go back to the very beginning of this series and point out your effort to make the white American, even these people who did this genocide, innocent. That never happened. And I would challenge you on racial issues, because that is the puzzle piece. That is part of the satanic ritual of the right wing rabbit hole that you go down. I'm surprised. I'm wondering if you're going to even try to talk about race relations between black people and white people, because you're going into justifying. No, you're trying to. You're doing the equivalent of Nazi apologetics, saying that there was no Holocaust. But let us continue.
So I think that's one of the big reasons this one got called out, because the story doesn't work out. But here's just a thing where scholarly, how many college courses talked about smallpox blankets? Boom, they're all debunked. But people are okay with that. Oh, science can change, and the truth doesn't change. There's one truth and only one truth.
Let's stand by. I want to see if that has actually been debunked. Smallpox. Native Americans. Debunk. You picked an article, I don't know where. Yeah. Colonial weaponizing of smallpox against Native Americans was first reported by the 19th century historian Francis Parkman, who came across correspondence in which Sir Geoffrey Amherst, commander-in-chief of the British forces in North America in the early 1760s, had discussed its use with Colonel Henry Bouquet, a subordinate on the western frontier during the French and Indian War. So the next thing I would do is try to read the actual correspondence. And if that correspondence shows a discussion on that level, then you, Hans, are a liar. So I'm going to pause this video. No, I can't pause the video because it's streaming, but we're gonna come back to this. I'm really fascinated with the level of, again, you just make an assumption, you jump through the process, and you don't examine the issue before you draw your conclusion. You talk like this. Well, look at how they just bring this thing up, and then they make up. It's just a lie. It's just a lie. And then you jump to your next point. It's almost like you're trying to use a form of I don't know if you're trying to like use it's like ADHD or something in your articulation, and you capitalize on that. I'm not sure. There's a way that you talk, though, that I can see is manipulative. It's like mesmerizing. So we're gonna stop here. This is part 3. I'm gonna with part 4, we're gonna find that correspondence, and then I'm gonna come back and debunk you. I'm gonna pretty much rewind a little bit and debunk you on this particular point.